Hey everybody, Carey Davis. Stop complaining, work harder, right here from the Work Harder Studios with the Face for Radio. Now today, by request, we're going to talk about things that a government employee can do to help themselves become a supervisor if you want to. And I go back to my previous things. Not everybody needs to be a supervisor. Not everybody has it in them. It's kind of a calling. There's a definite skill set, and it's not the skill set of your particular job, it's the skill set of a manager. So we're going to talk about that. One of the problems the government has is the training for managers is non-existent, and usually when you do get it, it's crappy. It's focused on the wrong thing. There's a few really good programs out there. Hopefully we'll talk to some of those people in the future, but for the most part, they're lacking in actually teaching you how to be a supervisor, how to be a manager. And remember, supervision, management, leadership, three different things. Go back, watch my earlier videos. They explain it a little bit better. So, um, one of my listeners or watchers, they sent me a message, and it's a pretty good question. It's, what if I'm a journeyman, I've been doing the job for a while, and I decide supervision is for me. What are the things a person can do to get themselves in a position to be considered more strongly for a supervisor when that job comes open? And, there's a lot of things you can do, but, I just want to open this discussion with a simple idea, and that is the name of this video series. Work harder, or at least work hard. Show up every day and do your job to the best of your abilities. You will get noticed. I will never forget till the day I die, and I bring this up all the time. One of my first bosses, Steve. Steve, if you're watching this, I have told this story so many times it gets old, but it's true. Steve told me when I was just starting out, he said, and at the time I think Steve was a GS-13, which I believe was a god because I was just a GS-5, and I could never imagine have ever becoming a GS-13. But Steve told me, he said, Carey, this is the U.S. government. If you come in and give us an honest 8 hours of work every day and show up most of the time, you'll be better than 90% of the people here. And time proved that he was actually right. That in that office, that particular office, that's true. Now, I've worked in other offices which were really, really high level, full of high level people, and, it would be common for everybody to be working hard, and sometimes 12, 13, 14, 15-hour days would be the norm. And I can rattle them off for you, but I will tell you an 8-hour day is a minimal day in the government jobs I've worked. Most of the time, 12 hours, 10 to 12 hours is your average day. But that's for another time. But one of those things is, like I said, work hard. And I've mentioned this before, but it's something that deserves discussion. And that is, you probably everyone watching this, I'm certain, has heard the phrase, work smarter, not harder. The common denominator there is work. One way or the other, the work has to get done. And so one of the problems, and I hate being the old guy that says, you youngins, you whippersnappers, but, so I became a manager the first time in 99, and my first supervisory job was in 1999. And I will tell you that from the day I became a manager, I was told over and over and over that these millennials, they're different. These millennials, they look at work differently, and they see the world in a different way, and they're not going to put up with the kind of stuff we're used to, where people come and tell you to do a job and they're going to run away from that, and it's not, and that was all bullshit. That was all bullshit, because that's what the management and HR gurus were pushing at the time. Well, the age of millennials being young people is over, and now those millennials are managers and on the cusp of becoming managers, because time moved on, and now the Gen Z people were hearing the same thing. And every single person is different, but I will say the sad part of the young generation coming up, the early 20-year-olds, is that They basically had their formative years during COVID when they were told to stay at home and do nothing. A lot of y'all see that as an opportunity now to get out and prove yourself, which is fantastic. Some of you took it as an opportunity to figure out that you could sit on your fat ass and do nothing the rest of your life. You will never be a manager. Okay? That's fine. You can go get a job somewhere and do your menial job the rest of your life, but you will never be promoted into the supervisory ranks. And you certainly won't be a leader if you're telling people don't work, because the object of work is to work. So yes, you can work smarter, not harder. Or you can work harder, not smarter. But the common denominator is work. The job has to get done. And this is the example I use. If you're on a construction site and there's a pile of lumber, a huge amount of lumber sitting there, and it has to be moved 100 yards. And it's not on forklift skids, but it's got to be moved. Inevitably, there will be some guy who comes along and says, well, if we go get forklift skids or pallets and put it on the pallet, stack all that on the pallet, then we can pick it up with a forklift and move it 100 yards. Okay, well, it took you, 30 minutes to come up with that solution and then try to sell it to us. And we all said, yeah, that would be easier. Except all that lumber has to be picked up by someone and stacked on the pallet, and then you can move it. Instead, what you should have done was you should have just started picking up lumber and walking it the 100 yards. Yes, the work is harder, but the job would be finished faster. And you wouldn't be out trying to find a forklift pallet. So it's all about weighing your options. Other times where working smarter is the smart thing to do. But the fact is the work has to be done. So hunker down, one of the bullshit bingo words, remember that one, and do the job. If you're out there consistently doing the job, just do your job. You don't have to do extras. Just do your job. The managers who are there now will notice. They will. There'll come a point where you'll notice that when tough work has to be assigned, the manager is coming to you. They're walking past 6 other people, and they're coming to you, which is not a great management practice. We'll talk about that in the future. But still, they're coming to you because it's human nature to go find the person who's going to get the job done in the most efficient and best way possible. If you're that person, when your name shows up on the list for a supervisory job, you've got the greatest chance of getting that job. I forgot to mention when I started this off, because I was so excited about this subject, stay tuned till the end of the show, please. We're going to do a round of bullshit bingo, but we're going to do bullshit bingo roulette, where I take the book with all the bullshit bingo words on it, and I'm going to open it to a page, and I'm going to close my eyes, let my finger land on a word, and just go off on that. So make sure you stay tuned. Also, go ahead, hit the like button. If you want to, subscribe. This is good information. I don't care who you are. If I'm not entertaining to you, that's fine, but please listen to me. My entire goal is to save you from doing the foolish crap that I did when I was coming up. So the other thing you can do, let's get back to the subject at hand, how to become a supervisor, how to get yourself in a position to be a supervisor. The other thing you can do is show up on time. I know that seems basic, but there are so many people that think they can roll in 10, 15, 20 minutes late. The military has a thing, 15 minutes early is 10 minutes late. Be early to every meeting. Be the first person there. Be waiting outside the door of the meeting room when your boss shows up to open it. Be on time. At the very least, be on time. Do not be late. Oh, I'm sorry, traffic was terrible. Too bad. Should have left the house 15 minutes early. That's life. You're going to be late at some point. That's just how life is. But if you're consistently on time, people notice. Be punctual. It makes a difference. It makes a difference. And the other thing I want to talk about is do the little things around the office. Do the things no one thinks about. If there's a mess in the break room, clean it up, even if it's not yours. Make sure there's copy paper in the machine. Don't leave the machine with 2 sheets of paper in it and walk away, so the next person has to do that. Just the little things that tidy up. One of the best bosses I ever had, and I was starting out, and I didn't understand what a great person this guy was, Jack. Jack was retired Army and had Vietnam vet, fantastic dude, nicest guy you'd ever meet. But Jack was interested in things that were different than me, so I didn't pay him any attention, and I was probably rude to him a little bit because I was an idiot. But Jack did all the little things in the office, all the little stuff, the administrative duties, the making sure there was film for the cameras, making sure there was ink for the fingerprint pads, making sure that everybody had ink in their stamps. I was an immigration officer, so I was stamping passports at the time, making sure everybody had ink in their stamps, making sure the safe was open when he came in to the office. Jack did these things. And no one, and I mean no one, appreciated it. Until Jack retired. And then we all appreciated it. It hit us in the face like a big, heavy chunk of wood. Why isn't the safe open when we come in? Oh, well, Jack used to do that. Jack used to do that. Jack used to do that. And boy, what a great guy Jack was. And I had no appreciation for it at the time. And I'm sorry for it every day. But if you become that person, you don't have to do all those things. But if you become the person that every morning when you come into the office, you open the cabinet that people need, or the safe, or the closet, or you have the books out and ready, or you have supplies for people. You're always, if you have an extra pen or two when you walk into a meeting, you're the person that has the extra pens. I'm not saying to polish boots. What I'm saying is be the person people depend on, that people count on. And they'll take you for granted, but they'll remember it when you come in for the interview. The other thing is, if you have the time, so remember, always do your job first. But if you have time, find a side project that will help your group and work on it. Even if it's in your spare time. You know, I did things like when I was starting out, I'll never forget. So I was an immigration inspector at the Port of Atlanta. And back in the early 90s, there were only 3 international flights a day. There were only about 15 immigration people at the airport. It was truly tiny. And we used about 1 ream of paper a week in the copier. And this is so long, I'm talking about when copiers took up the whole wall and all that. But we used about 1 ream of paper a week. But we couldn't keep a ream of paper. When we needed it, we had to go down to the district office, which was 6.5 miles away in downtown Atlanta, which, if you're in Atlanta, that's about a 30-minute drive. But if my old friend Buck up in Minneapolis ever gets to see this, he'll tell you I've got the record time for making that drive. But we would drive up once a week, get supplies, and part of that supply was a ream of paper. And that was my job as the GS5 to go up and get the supplies, or make the supply run. Okay, so around in 95, Concourse E was opened, and we had this huge facility, all this space that we had never had before. And I went to my boss and I said, hey, why don't we order a pallet of paper? Why don't we get so much paper we never have to go downtown again? And he looked at me and he goes, you're crazy. I said, nah, we just get all the paper we need and then we don't have to beg anybody for it. And sure enough, I got a pallet of 8.5 by 10 and 8.5 by 14. And, you know, the 8.5 by 10 probably lasted a year. I'm pretty sure there's remnants of that pallet of 8.5 by 14 still sitting in Concourse E in the back break room. But nonetheless, we had it, and it saved so much time and energy. It was a big deal. That was a simple side project that took very little time. And the boss noticed that I was actually putting the extra effort forward. And things like that. And you don't have to do exactly that, but you can think of things. You will see things as you work, little things that need to be addressed. And just pick those things out. Again, you're not polishing boots. You're seeing what needs to be done and doing it. It's not a hard concept. It really isn't. And, you know, it's the kind of thing that no one's ever going to come and pat you on the back. And if they do, it'll be callous and short-lived. But no one's ever going to come along and say, ooh, the conquering hero, you did this side project. But it helps you get noticed. Boy, doesn't Jennifer always come through with things that help the office out. Isn't that great? These things get you noticed. And getting noticed is what it's all about. getting noticed in a positive way. And again, I'm not talking about walking in with a sign or kissing somebody's butt or having the coffee ready for your boss in the morning. It's not about polishing boots. It's about doing the little things that are necessary, that are going to get done one way or the other. But if you've got them done ahead of time, everybody wins, especially you. The other thing, and this is a skill you're going to have to polish, but um, a lot of jobs are technical in nature, and you don't really get to see other human beings and their personalities. You're working on, my last several years, I worked with hazardous material safety, and we had a scientific division, and they're looking at the properties of explosives. We've got scientists, honest to God, PhDs, great people, great, unbelievably smart people, but they're looking at the properties of explosives. Is it an explosive? Is it a flammable solid? Is it, there's all these different possibilities, and I give much credit out to hazmat people out there. It's an unsung discipline that has true believers, and without those true believers, moving hazmat safely would be a very difficult job. So thank you all. But they're so focused. You could, if you had that job, you would be so focused on, the scientific determinations and writing the paper, all that. You really don't have time to learn to read people. And that's where I'm going with all that, Shaggy Dog, is you got to learn to read people. You got to understand what motivates people. And my jobs, I was in federal law enforcement, immigration, and so one of the first things I was taught was look at what motivates people, and then you'll understand their behavior. So in law enforcement, there's a lot of different motivations, but generally it comes down to sex, drugs, and money. Those three things are going to cause or have the motivation for most of the crimes in the world. Always room for variation, but generally it comes down to sex, drugs, and money, and because all those things lead to power of some type. And anyways, we could go on, but if you understand people's motivation, you understand people, and you'll understand their behavior, and you can start to become predictive about it. So if you take the time, instead of talking like I'm doing now, and you watch and listen and observe how people behave, you will learn how to interact with people in a way where you're leading them or instructing them or managing them without them taking offense by it. Because a lot of people, the majority of people, when you come, you say, hey, why don't you do some work? They're going to be offended by that. But if you know what motivates them, if you know what their behavioral patterns are, you can come in and utilize that to help them understand that they need to do the work or do a certain project, and it's beneficial to them. And you can say it in a way that leads them. It's more motivational to them. And so before you become a supervisor, you don't understand this, but if you watch the patterns and the behavior, you'll get much more out of it. So with that, those are things you can do. Other thing that's important, very important, is to let your boss know your intention. Hey boss, I want to be a supervisor someday. It seems basic and obvious. And for a lot of people, they won't do it because they feel like they're being forward and they're pushing. Well, that's not true. Your supervisor, who's going to select you to become a supervisor, or your second line or third line supervisor, they're the ones that are going to make the decision. And if they know that you want a job, then they're going to be more inclined to give you reasonable consideration for that job. But if you've never told them you want to be a supervisor, they don't think you're motivated. So, oh, Harry's name's on the list, but he's never told me he wanted the job. Let's look at Jennifer. She keeps telling me she wants this job. And doing it too much is bad too. Doing it, looking like you're desperate or hungry, whatever. You don't want to do that, but you want to let your boss know. So take the time, go have a candid conversation with your boss and say, look, I don't want to be pushy, but my goal is to be a supervisor like you. And then when they stop laughing, because nobody really wants to do that, they want the money, which is a bigger joke because the money's not there. But anyways, I digress. Tell them, have an honest and open conversation with them about it. And you never know, They might lead you to the second part of that, which is a great thing that I think every single government employee should do. And that is, if you have the opportunity, if you can, do a stint as an acting supervisor. Take 30 days, 90 days, 120 days, become an acting supervisor. You will learn more, A, about your colleagues than you ever wanted to know, but B, about doing the job and understanding what it means to take ownership of the job. Because taking ownership is a huge part of supervision. You're no longer a cog in the machine. You are the machine. You're the engineer making sure the machine runs when you become a supervisor. And it's not easy. It's a learning curve. You will find out very quickly who your actual friends are. And I guarantee you, to take a line from a movie, it'll be your best friend that does it to you. It'll be your best friend that tries to screw you over first because they think they can get away with it. But you will learn so much. Because after you become an acting supervisor and you've seen it, and if you still want to be a manager after that, then you have the calling. And now's the time to get serious. Polish up your resume. Put down the project. Put down things you've led. Successes you've led, even if it's getting extra paper for the office. This is a success. This is a project you took on. And look at what was the problem? There was not enough paper. We were spending too much time. We were spending energy going that 6.5 miles to get paper every week. Seems minimal, but it's a problem. And then I went and I led up and I convinced my boss that we needed to get a pallet of paper. And then when I got approval, I took the action of requesting the paper, having it delivered, storing it in a room, and making sure. Then I communicated to the entire staff that we had paper, and they used said paper. Project success. And in that, we saved X amount of time over the course of a year. Windfall. You show that. When you write your resume, you can do just a CV, but you have that story in your head for the interview. Tell us about a time when you managed something. Well, we had this problem with paper supply. And you think, well, that has nothing to do with my job. That was a side project. Exactly. You took the initiative. All this will get recognized. You see where I'm going with this? It makes a huge difference. But try to be an acting supervisor. It goes a long, long, long way. And a lot of times it's a good thing, because it's going to teach you, maybe I didn't want to do this. Big question. A lot of people, it's not that you're not cut out for supervision, it's just not for you. And that's okay. It's okay that it's not for you. All right. I can talk more about that later. I think it's a great topic, and I would really appreciate any comments you guys have on it, experiences. If anybody wants to, give their advice on it, let me know. I'll have you on the show. So let's close out with some bullshit bingo. And as promised, we are going to do bullshit bingo roulette. So like I said, I sat around for 3 years and I wrote down all the bullshit words I heard while I was in meetings. All the government words where government employees make stuff up, words and phrases, to sound smart when they are average. Okay? Like I said, there's some really smart civil servants. Most of us are just average. And we use these words that are well beyond our normal vocabulary to sound smart. So I got the page right here. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to close my eyes. Wherever my finger lands, that's what we're going to talk about. Okay. Oh, this is a great one. This is a great one. On your radar. On your radar. Oh my God, what a great bullshit bingo phrase. So if something's on your radar, it means you're paying attention to it. Or it's been foisted upon you, so you have to pay attention to it. Or the question is this project on your radar? That's an honest to God question asked every day all across the U.S. government, maybe across private industry too. I don't know. Tell me. But come on. Are you paying attention? Have you noticed this? Is this something you care about? Is this on your radar? Bullshit. Bullshit in the highest degree. Anyway, thanks for watching. That's it for me today. Stay tuned for another episode of Bullshit Bingo of Stop Complaining, Work Harder next week. I put out a short of Bullshit Bingo every morning. I encourage you to watch. It's a lot of fun. Have a great day. Davis out.